My name is Paul Teeter. I am the president of the Student Government Association here at Shepherd University. Thank you. And I will be moderating this first session of our town hall. We would like to thank everyone for coming out to this event. Part of an initiative here on campus for students to become more civically engaged, we are encouraging our students to ask questions to these candidates. Students may ask questions in person or heading back to our Stubblefield table and submitting them in writing. Once again, thank you for coming to the For Students by Students Town Hall. Thanks to all the candidates who are here in attendance. Let's get started by having each candidate take 1 minute and introducing themselves. We'll go from left to right and start with Lucia.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me this evening. Thank you, Shepherd SGA and the Stubblefield Institute, for hosting this candidate forum. It's so great to be in community with you all, and it's even more special because I am a Shepherd alum. I graduated in 2019, so it's super exciting to be back in this capacity as a candidate working for the community. So thank you so much. My name is Lucia Valentine. I'm running as a Democrat for House of Delegates in District 97. I'm running because of the love I have for my community and the Eastern Panhandle. I want to work to secure access to clean air and clean water, supporting our public school teachers and workers and state employees, and creating jobs for young people to be able to stay in West Virginia, live here, and thrive here for generations to come. I have experience working at the state legislature in a bipartisan way, and I want to apply those skills to this job should I be elected. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Lucia. Mr. Anders.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Anders. I'm the constitutional conservative running for the Republican nomination in the 97th delegate seat. This is the first time I've run for office personally, but I'm not new to politics. I've worked in politics pretty much full-time for 18 years now. I've worked with such groups as the National Association for Gun Rights, the National Right to Work Committee, Students for Life Action, Campaign for Liberty, and most recently for Young Americans for Liberty. You notice there's kind of a trend there. But I do live locally. I grew up in Sharpsburg on a small farm, and I am a fierce defender of the Constitution as written and adopted, and protector of individual liberty, both personal and economic. Thank you.
Now, Ms. Russo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's so good to see so many friends in the room and to be gathered in community to hear about the issues that matter most to you. So my name is Maria Russo, and I'm running to be your delegate here in District 100. District 100 runs from Shepherdstown up to Shannondale, and it includes Harpers Ferry, Bolivar, Bakerton, and all points in between. So I grew up here in Jefferson County, and I care very deeply about this community. I care about the people who live here. I care about the families who call this place home, the kids who are in our schools, and all of you who are in the room here tonight, and all of the issues that you brought to the room to talk about. I really have an experience in making meaningful change in the community. That is something I care deeply about. I have worked as a Jefferson County school teacher and coach. I have worked as a public policy strategist, and I currently advocate for clean water with West Virginia Rivers Coalition. So it is my intention to focus on the local issues here at home, and I plan to support teachers, students, workers, public employees, young people, and again, all of the incredible people who came tonight who make up our community. So thank you so much for having us, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Russo. Before we open the mic for students to ask questions, we have one question to kind of get started, have a little fun. We'll give you 2 minutes for this question. What are your favorite memories here of Shepherd University? We'll go opposite way. We'll start with Ms. Russo.
Great. Thank you so much. I grew up coming to Shepherd University. It was Shepherd College at the time and has evolved to the university, which we're very proud of. I have experience coming to a lot of events since I was a young kid. So going over to the Rams Den and playing or bowling, going to the Wellness Center, going to a mix of concerts and theater performances at the Frank Arts Center. I'm trying to remember my favorite one. I really am. It might have been, Shepherd used to have a concert series here, and anybody remember the yearly concert? What was it called? Shep Fest. There we go. See a little involvement from the crowd. So I came for Shep Fest one year, and we had just an incredible time listening to music, being in community together, eating food. I think now coming to Dog Fest here on campus is one of the most amazing memories in the summer, in the dog days of summer. So I have a lot of experience coming here, love being in community altogether, and look forward to continuing that tradition here at Shepherd. Appreciate all the incredible programming you all do for our community. You know, we have representatives from the Appalachian Studies program here in the crowd, from the Robert C. Byrd Center. So I appreciate all of the work that you all do. I was at a program last week called Resilient Community, or Building Resiliency in West Virginia, and I feel strongly that this university really makes our community a better place, and I really appreciate all that you all do for the people here and to continue the dialogue together.
Russo, now Mr. Anders.
Thank you. I did not attend Shepherd University. I attended another college, so I didn't spend too much time here. My sister did graduate from Shepherd. Probably the most poignant memory, however, is about 10 to 12 years ago, the West Virginia Campaign for Liberty had sponsored Jordan Page to come here, the singer-songwriter who opened for Dr. Ron Paul on his 2012 campaign. And we had everything set up down below. We had all the permits, everything set up on the grass, I think not too far from here. And about 5 minutes before it was supposed to start, I saw the world's most incredible rainstorm move in. I have never drowned in 3 minutes like I did then. So we actually ended up, bagging the concert, grabbing all the students that had, attended the concert, and we all went back to my house. And we dried everybody off, and Jordan did a home concert there. So that's probably the memory that sticks out the most. It was, I think I drowned that day, so.
Thank you, Mr. Anders. Now Ms. Valentine.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And similar to Maria, I grew up here in Shepherdstown in Jefferson County. So my first memory of being on campus probably was taking swimming lessons in the Wellness Center back when it was just right down the street and not on the other side of campus. So that was sure a long time ago. And I attended Shepherd from 2015 to 2019, where I studied music and I minored in environmental science. So I'm really grateful for the opportunities I had to be a part of the Masterworks Choir, community choir here on campus, the Delta Zeta sorority, the Shepherd Environmental Organization, and so many other great groups where I really met a lot of friends, got involved with the community, and met a lot of great mentors and professors. I studied music, and so I actually released my first album while I was studying at Shepherd, which is a really cool experience, and they were generous enough to let me have my album release party at the Frank Arts Center. So that might be one of my favorite memories, was getting to debut all my original music that night. I think I was a sophomore in college at the time. And just to have my peers come out, my professors and members of the community, I felt really supported, and it felt like a really cool way to be able to give back to Shepherd. And now I really enjoy coming back for homecoming and different events at the Byrd Center and across campus. So I'm really excited to continue the partnership with the university, and I'm really grateful for all the great work they do in the community to support our teachers and our students who are studying here.
Thank you. Now we would like to open the mic up there for any student questions. Please just keep in mind the questions must be asked civilly, can apply to all candidates, and be relevant to the state of West Virginia. So do we have any questions from students? If you're still taking time to think, we do have some submitted from students who couldn't be here, so we can start with those. But all right, let me get it pulled up here. All right. This comes from a student here at Shepherd. Recently, the Hunger-Free Campus Act did not make it through the State House for a vote. Would you support this act that fights food insecurity on college campuses? And what steps should West Virginia take to fight food insecurities on college campuses? We'll give 2 minutes because that's kind of a loaded question, and we'll start with Mr. Anders.
Okay, I'm not overly familiar with that piece of legislation. I worked around the country for the past year on different things like constitutional carry and life at conception, so I wasn't paying real close attention to that bill. But if I understand, it's a bill to give public funding for students for food here on the campus. Is that correct?
I believe I don't know all the details about it, but I know the main goal is to give funding to fight food insecurity for campuses.
Fight for what?
Fight against food insecurity.
Food insecurity, okay. I'm always a believer that government interference in the free market always leads to poverty and problems. And we've unfortunately become a society where we always pray at the altar of government to cure our evils. You know, I've donated, my wife and I, we donate to children overseas. We believe in private charities. However, I don't think it's the government's job, personally, to take tax money from one person to pay for food for somebody else.
Okay, for next, we'll go with Ms. Valentine.
Yes, thank you. I think I personally would have likely supported that legislation. I think that we are seeing food insecurity and instability across the state, and it's really important that we are supporting the health of our students who are attending Shepherd. I also know that there's a great initiative with Tabler Station Farm in partnership with Shepherd, where they're doing a lot of growing of local foods, and I think there's a great opportunity for the students to be able to participate in that growing of food and sharing it with the with campus and with the dining halls, and there's a real opportunity there to be able to feed your own by students being able to grow their own food.
All right, thank you. Ms. Russo?
This is a piece of legislation that I would absolutely support. I think that we have to make sure that people in our community have meals on the table, a roof over their head, a warm place to go home to at night. Those are human needs, and we have to make sure that people in our communities have access to those. I was a Jefferson County school teacher during the COVID-19 pandemic, so I started teaching in 2020, and that was during the time that the state was able to support free and reduced lunch for all students in Jefferson County schools. And that was an incredible moment for teachers, for students, because I watched kids who had to make the decision of whether or not to eat lunch at school go from being hungry in 5th, 6th, and 7th period to having a meal in front of them. That is a powerful thing. We have to allow our children to feel safe. We have to provide our young people with resources to be able to thrive. So I absolutely think that we must do everything in our power to make sure that people have food on their table and can be nourished so that they can thrive in their lives and in our community.
Thank you, guys. All right. We have another question here. This one regards the quote-unquote brain drain that seems to be happening in West Virginia. So West Virginia is a state that's unique, that many students, especially at our university, come in, get an education here, and then go work out of state. Additionally, West Virginia, their students come here and then after graduation, work out of state. What initiatives should the state legislature take to fight this brain drain and keep students who get educated in West Virginia to stay and work in West Virginia? We'll start with Ms. Valentine.
Thank you. That's a great question. It's definitely a problem that we are seeing here in the Eastern Panhandle. I think that one piece of legislation or policy that we could work on implementing would be locality pay. There is bipartisan support for implementing locality pay here in the Eastern Panhandle, and that's the idea that people would be paid more because the cost of living is higher, and because we are finding it hard to be competitive when people can be educated in West Virginia and then go 10 minutes over the border to Maryland, Virginia, farther down the road to DC and other places, and make double the money in some cases that they're being able to make here at home. So I think it's really important. It makes sense to establish locality pay here in West Virginia, again, so that we can provide our teachers, our public workers, our correction officers, and our doctors, nurses, everybody that helps make our community run with higher pay, so they are incentivized to stay here, and so that they are not just getting educated here and then taking their brain power and their smarts to other states. We need to be able to incentivize them to stay here at home.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. Mr. Anders?
Well, I think, again, I'm a big believer in the free market. West Virginia, we tend to be fairly free, with the exception, at least personal freedom, with the exception of health freedom. There's almost no health freedom. We're in the bottom 5 as far as health freedom in the nation, which is absolutely ridiculous. But as far as economic freedom, we're not. We have way too many business regulations. We have the business inventory tax, which keeps the businesses from succeeding, the businesses that's already here. So what we have is a state legislature going around doing crony capitalism, where they take taxpayer money and they give it to people like Bill Gates and to bring their companies to West Virginia. So it's actually hurting West Virginia-based businesses. So they're always importing these other companies rather than eliminating taxes and regulations and putting West Virginia and West Virginia businesses first, which would lead to job growth.
Thank you, Mr. Anders. Ms. Russo?
I want to second the points of my colleague, Ms. Valentine, when she talked about locality pay and providing higher pay for people in our community. I have quite a few people in my community and in my network who do go across the border for work because it is more pay for their jobs. So they drive just a little bit further to go into Virginia or Maryland. I have quite a few friends who have moved to Frederick, Maryland, because they're able to get a higher salary. And in my personal story, I left West Virginia to go to school, and I worked out of the state for a few years. And when I returned back home to West Virginia, I did take a pay cut to come home. And that's something I could afford to do. It's something I did because I care so much about this community, but it's not a choice we should have to make. Our young people, our people who are here in the community who want to contribute to this community should have opportunities to do so that are equal pay to any community around us. So I agree with the notion of locality pay. I also believe that we are going to be able to provide more opportunities for people if we have adequate childcare, if we have education opportunities for people here. We have high-speed internet, we have clean water, right? It's a whole package, and all of the pieces relate to one another. So we really have to make sure that we have these resources in place for people and are giving them opportunities to thrive here so they don't have to make the decision to leave.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Russo. This next question is short, but it can be very loaded, so we'll give 2 minutes for each candidate. What is your opinion on Senate Bill 10, the Campus Self-Defense Act? And if you guys are unfamiliar with it, I can try my best to explain it, but we'll go ahead and we'll start with Ms. Russo.
Thank you so much. So for those in the room who don't know, in 2023, during the legislative session, Senate Bill 10 was the Campus Self-Defense Act. It was also called the Campus Carry Act. So this was an act that allowed for people to carry guns on college campuses, which was previously not permitted. And I do support the Second Amendment. That is a constitutional right. I support people's rights. It's the law of the land, and I get behind any constitutional amendment or constitutional right that we already have in place. And I also support safe schools. So I shared that I was a public school teacher in Jefferson County schools. And it is extremely important for me that we are protecting our students. That goes from K through 12 education up to the university level. We have to make sure all students in our schools feel safe so that they don't have to question their safety while they are trying to learn. During the process of Senate Bill 10 being considered, we heard from numerous presidents of colleges and universities, including the president here at Shepherd University, who shared that they did not feel that Senate Bill 10 was a good idea because of the infrastructure and the management that would be required to pass this bill safely. So to allow people to carry to allow people to carry guns on college campuses would mean that there are some places that they could carry them and some places that they could not, which would then mean that the university or college would be responsible to have infrastructure for them to lock up their guns. That's a tremendous cost on colleges and universities. It takes a long time to be able to implement that safely. And if we don't have the ability to pay for that or to manage that, that's a whole workload in and of itself that I don't believe the legislature, took care of in the writing of the initial bill itself. So I really feel that the universities and colleges should be making this decision on their own. This should be a local issue that they take up to decide for their own community. I would venture to say that the president of Shepherd University is one of the experts of how things should run at Shepherd, right? So I think they should be empowered to make the decisions that make the most sense for their community, and I think that that will allow us to be safer all together here on campus.
All right. sorry, I shouldn't be breathing that loud on the mic. Mr. Anders, your answer?
Well, of course, if anybody knows me, they know I would absolutely support Senate Bill 10 because I've worked around the country to pass constitutional carry in 8 states, including here in West Virginia, most recently in Louisiana and South Carolina. The right to life, liberty, and property also entails the means to protect your life, liberty, and property. And I fully, in my reading of the Second Amendment, it does not say you should beg the government's permission or pay a tax to exercise your right to self-defense. So I absolutely support Senate Bill 10. It is your right to bear arms for your security and those you love and your own liberty. So, like I said, those who know me know exactly where I would stand on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Anders. Now, Ms. Valentine, your answer.
Thank you. And I do second and echo some of the sentiments that my colleague from the 100th laid out there. The Campus Carry Bill, Senate Bill 10, I will preface by saying I also support our Second Amendment freedom and all the rights that are guaranteed to us under the Constitution. I grew up with a father who hunted. My partner is in the military at the Air National Guard base in Martinsburg, so I get that. I get the culture that is here in West Virginia, but I also know that we do need to protect children and we need to have safe schools and protect West Virginians from gun violence. I do believe that I think it's unfortunate that the legislature has passed such a law that came with such a financial burden to our universities. The Campus Carry Act cost $11.6 million in the first year to our universities across the state. Again, Shepherd, West Virginia University, West Virginia State, Concord University all opposed this legislation, not just last year, but for several years in a row. And I do think that we need to be trusting the experts and the presidents of those universities to implement decisions that affect their universities. So I would have opposed that, that legislation.
All right, looks like, if I'm not mistaken, we have a student question.
Hi, good evening. How do you plan on combating the barriers to access reproductive care for West Virginia residents? Thank you.
We will start with Ms. Valentine.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Well, of course, as a woman, I fully support restoring reproductive freedoms here in the Mountain State. I think that national opinion has largely changed since the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and I would also support sending this measure to referendum so that the voters in West Virginia can decide if they want to protect this freedom in West Virginia. I think this decision is best made by the voters of the state. I also believe that my rights end where my neighbors begin, and it's not the business of the legislature or politicians to be legislating what women can or cannot do with their bodies. As a woman, you know, I am hoping to be at the table where these decisions are being made at the legislature. In West Virginia, we have the least amount of women legislators than any other state in the country. So I'm really hoping that Maria and I can change that statistic just a little bit. But it's very important. It's an important issue to women across the state, and we need to be safeguarding access to reproductive care.
I did forget to mention we'll do 2 minutes for that, but thank you, Chelsea, for catching it. Mr. Anders?
Well, okay, my answer is going to be a little bit different. I've worked with Students for Life Action to pass life at conception in 4 states, including here in West Virginia. Unfortunately, the West Virginia bill did not go far enough, in my humble opinion, because they still allow children conceived and raped to be murdered if their father committed a crime. I believe that life begins at conception, and as such, it is a separate life. It is not part of a woman's body. It is another life. It has its own arms, its own legs, its own head, and its own heart, and any government that considers itself moral and just must protect the lives of the unborn.
Ms. Russo, your answer.
I want to start by acknowledging that this is an incredibly complex and personal decision, which is why we have been having the conversation about reproductive freedoms since the 70s. We have not been able to solve it. We have been in a debate as a country because it is a personal decision that should be made by each person individually. I strongly support personal liberties and personal freedoms. and I strongly support individuals making decisions about their own bodies. I heard someone say yesterday that there is not room for Jim Justice in the medical procedure room. There is not room for any of us. That should not be the way that decisions are made. The decisions should be made by the person who is receiving care and their care practitioner. And so I would do everything in my power to support reproductive freedoms and making sure that people have accessible and affordable health care in the state of West Virginia. I do believe there are critical roles of government, but I don't believe this is a critical role of government. I don't believe that government needs to be in the conversation around you and your body. I think this is government intrusion, and I think it's overreach. And I support you in this room making decisions about your own life, your own body, and your own family.
Thank you. Do we have any student questions? Students want to come to the mic and ask a question?
In the January session of the Senate for the West Virginia, they introduced a bill, SB 409, permitting all publicly funded state schools to teach foreign languages in the classroom from kindergarten through K-12, through 12th grade. What is your opinions on this bill that is currently in the Education Committee?
All right, we'll do 2 minutes. We'll start with Mr. Anders.
Okay, and you say the bill was SB 409? Yep. And the bill allowed teaching foreign languages? It was a bill to force publicly funded schools to, and that includes universities as well as high school and kindergarten through 12. Okay, first of all, when we're talking about school, I support 100% full and universal school choice. The government does not own your children. The government does not control your children. It is the parent's job. Now, so that being the case, I absolutely support school choice. I believe the money should follow the child, whether they want to be homeschooled, private schooled, or go to public school. And in that type of situation, people aren't fighting over the power of what's being taught in schools. What you have is different schools can cater to different audiences. Let's give liberty a try. If someone wants to send somebody to a school that teaches a certain way, fine. If they want to send their kid to a school that teaches a different way, fine. Let's give liberty, full and liberty, a try. I was part of the team at Young Americans for Liberty that passed full and complete school choice in Ohio in 2023. And I believe that is the best way to fix our educational system rather than fighting over who controls the one ring to rule them all. I think what we need to do is give liberty a chance. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Russo?
Thank you so much for this question. It's a very interesting topic, and it's something that I care very deeply about. So I was educated in Jefferson County schools. I was lucky enough to be a TA Terrier, a Shepherdstown Road Runner, Shepherdstown Cardinal, and a Jefferson Cougar. So I don't know if we have any of those in the room. But I'm very proud of those mascots, those people who I walked the halls with, some of which are here in the room today. So I fully support Jefferson County schools making the decisions that are best for Jefferson County students. And I also do believe that we need further investment in our public schools. As when I was teaching at Jefferson High School, I taught high school Spanish, actually, and it was a very difficult experience. I had a lot of students in the room who did not understand the value of learning a foreign language. They felt like, oh, I have to be here, and I'm not really interested in this. But as soon as we got into the cultural elements, and I could see students having light bulbs of, oh, this is what's happening in Spain. Oh, this is what's happening in Ecuador. Oh, this is what's happening in Mexico. They were learning about people around the world, and they were learning about points of connection. And I feel that that is incredibly important. I think language is a tool. I am bilingual myself. I speak Spanish and have spent a lot of time in Spanish-speaking places. And I feel strongly that Foreign language is a tool to be able to access other parts of the world, to be able to communicate with our neighbors and our friends more effectively. So I fully support foreign languages. Now, I think that the piece I'm not totally sure on, I'm not familiar with the legislation, but I'm not sure if it was required for students to take the class. One thing I saw become very effective at Jefferson is that students could choose if they wanted to take a language or not, and they could choose what language they wanted to take. So I had a lot of students who had more affinity to Spanish because of personal reasons or more affinity to French. So, I think the students should have a choice in the matter, but I absolutely think foreign language and supporting foreign language education for our young people is incredibly important.
All right. Thank you all. Do we have any other student questions? Yep, come on up.
Did you want me to answer that?
Oh, I am so
You get a pass.
sorry.
Just for the sake
I am
of
so sorry.
being fair.
I'm so sorry, Lucia.
No, that's all good.
Okay, 2 minutes, Ms. Valentine.
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry.
I appreciate it. Great. Well, with that being said, I do think that we need great public schools for every child in West Virginia. I do support, statewide raises for our teachers and public school workers beyond the 5% that's been granted the past several years. I think that we can go up to at least 10% to really incentivize these teachers and workers to stay in West Virginia. And I also was homeschooled a majority of my elementary school years and for a year in high school. So I do understand school choice and the value in that, but I also think there is value in supporting our public school education, and that school choice should not come at the cost of defunding our public schools and taking money away from our public schools. So that is something that I will definitely be against should I be elected. But one of my main goals while running is to listen to the community and shadow students and teachers and administrators in various public schools across the county. I'm already starting to do so, and I've heard from several students about the needs and things that they want to see change in their public schools to help better their experience, their education experience. And some of those include expanded mental health services and addressing the Eastern Panhandle's growing diverse cultural population. So I do think that that includes supporting foreign language classes and the opportunity for students to explore different languages, whether that be Spanish, French, whatever the school has implemented as their curriculum. So I would support that. I was a Spanish student ever since middle school all the way through college. I studied here in Shepherd until my junior year. So I think it's very important for many of the reasons that my colleague, Ms. Russo, laid out. So I really would support those classes being continued.
My apologies again for just slipped my mind.
No worries.
All right, so now.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, how do you plan on making gender-affirming care accessible to people of all ages and demographics?
Okay, we'll give 2 minutes for that question. We'll start with Ms. Russo.
Thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it and appreciate all the questions that have been asked tonight. I think that supporting gender-affirming care, especially for our young people, is incredibly important. It is a public health issue. It is a topic that, in my experience of working with young people, talking to them in the public schools, this is incredibly important to them. I would even go so far to say probably one of the top 3 issues. It is top of mind for young people because they are trying to understand their identities. They are learning more about the world with social media, as we know. And so we have to be able to give them resources and support to do that exploration safely. I know that there are amazing organizations in West Virginia, such as West Virginia Free, who are supporting a lot of legislation to make sure that our communities have affordable, accessible health care, which includes oftentimes gender-affirming care. So in my experience, working in the high school, hearing from young people, I absolutely think it's crucial that we support that. And so I would do everything in my power to try to listen to the people who were impacted most by any legislation that I would push forward. And I would do my absolute best to provide affordable and accessible health care for every West Virginian.
Mr. Anders?
Wow, okay, I think you guys know where I'm going to fall on this one. Using public money to change or quote-unquote change someone's sex is something that I would never support. I believe in individual liberty. I believe that if my neighbor tomorrow decided that they wanted to call themselves a German Shepherd and act like one, I'd be all for it. Go ahead, have a good time on your property. But if you come onto public property or my property and force me to accept your belief system, sorry, you're infringing on my liberty. So no, I would not support that. I do support the legislation that went through this year to prohibit the mutilization of minors, gender-confused minors. In fact, I would have gone farther and banned chemical castration. Because I really believe in my heart of hearts that just changing what someone's wearing and adding some costume is one of the greatest mockeries of God's imperfect creations.
Ms. Valentine?
Thank you, and thank you so much for the question. West Virginia is one of the unhealthiest states for many, many reasons, and so I think it's really important that we support the expansion of affordable and accessible health care across the state, and I do think that should include gender-affirming health care. I think that we need to make West Virginia a safe state for all, especially our young people, so that we can keep our young people here for generations to come. Young people are leaving the state in record numbers, and we should not make it harder for them to be accepted here and want to stay here. They should feel safe and they should have access to the care that they need.
We're getting close on time here. Do we have one more question from students? If not, we'll go ahead. We'll have each candidate take 1 minute to give any closing remarks, and we'll start with Ms. Valentine.
Thank you very much. Let me pull up my closing remarks. I really want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Again, it's super special to be back at Shepherd with all of you, and I really appreciate you coming out and engaging in the democratic process. It's really important to understand what's happening at the local level and to get to know your local candidates, because that's where decisions are made that most affect you at the local and state level. I really believe that things have become far too nationalized, and we really need to focus again on what's happening at the state level, work together to create solutions to the problems that our state faces, and work together in a positive way. I think there's a lot of common ground to be found. Politics have become very divisive and negative, and I think we have a real chance to turn that around. So I'm working for the families, the people, the workers of District 97, and I really look forward to continuing to hear from all of you about the issues that matter most as we move forward into November. So thank you very much for your time and again for coming out this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Anders?
Well, I want to thank you guys for having me here tonight. As you probably realized, I didn't have a lot of fans in the room. That's okay. I'm never going to hide, where I stand on any issue at any time. In fact, if you go to my website, which is anders4wv.com, I've put down all my belief system there for you to read. Too many times politicians run for office telling people what they think they should hear, right? I'm going to always tell you what I believe is the truth. I believe we have a great chance here in West Virginia to restore freedom. If you look at Maryland, if you look at Virginia, if you look at many of the states around us, people are losing their constitutional rights and are looking for someplace to go. All we need to do is open up the free market, stop the crony capitalism, reduce business taxes, get rid of the personal income tax, and allow freedom to thrive and restore personal economic freedom and make West Virginia a shining light for liberty. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Russo?
I want to thank you all so much for coming tonight into this room and for being in this conversation together. I learned so much at these conversations, and I hope you learned along with us too. And I really think this is what it takes. I think it takes a discussion where we are in it together. We are willing to collaborate. We are willing to hear each other's sides so that we can make responsible policies. That is what I am here. I believe in responsible policy making. And I will do everything in my power to listen to your voice and make sure that that voice is represented in the policies that I would push forward if elected. I'm honored to have Shepherd University in my district, here in District 100, and I really hope that all of you Shepherd students who are here tonight, I hope you all will come out in November, because we really need your voice, we need your perspective, and I appreciate so much that you shared it with us tonight. And I'm trying to figure out. I do also want to share that my website is russo4wv.com, and that is the number 4. So that's RUSSO 4wv.com. And we really want to bring people into this movement. We want people to get involved. We want to make sure your voices are heard. So please feel free to reach out to me at any point in time. I'd love to hear your perspective, and I'd love, like I said, to include your voice in the actions that we are trying to move forward to make the state of West Virginia a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for coming out. This was definitely, I think, a great discussion, a great opportunity for the students. So we'll go ahead. Our next session will start around 6:30. It'll be with John Doyle and Paul Espinosa, candidates for Senate District 16. So feel free within about that 12 minutes, stretch, get some snacks, talk with candidates. And if the 3 candidates on the stage can just meet me over here real quick. But yeah, thank you guys all